More than a decade ago, the GHC had a major problem. The digital German clocking system they'd adopted recorded a bird's return time to the 10th of a second. However, the American software program they used could not. It was written when most pigeon clocks counted to the second. That was once good enough, but not for the club in Spring Hill. They were often getting birds that tied, sometimes half a dozen. That's a problem in any race, but a nightmare when prize money can drop with each position. After several years of lobbying, the program was updated, becoming 10 times more accurate. Now each fancier's pink timed-in sheet shows arrival times down to the 10th of a second. It's how Bill Midiu knows he lost out on thousands of dollars by a whisker. Electronic timing is a godsend to fanciers who have to manage several hundred pigeons. And it all depends on the microchips each bird wears when it's racing. Keeping track of this falls to Jerry McIntosh, like Vernon and Sal, an essential member of the old guard who keeps things humming here. Each year, Jerry matches each pigeon's registration band to the microchip they carry. This year, he did it more than 12,000 times. The hallway next to his front door is piled with bags of chips that guys like Dragon come by to pick up so they can put them on their race birds. The chips do much more than clock races. They also allow every training toss to be recorded, so you can spot steady performers and laggers. It's a massive amount of data, and you don't do well here without keeping good records. Laurie uses the big sheets the club sells to track both his old bird and young bird teams. John Marles tracks his birds, but also keeps a diary of everything he can think of to give him hints of what is or is not working with his birds. He says he reads it all winter. Like Laurie, the key information is which pigeons and which parents are exceeding others.
What I do is on the reporting sheet that I get, the pink sheet, I write the breeding box number next to the bird. And I go down only to the birds that made the points. So then once you get going into the races, you're saying, wow, this box 24, 24, 24, you know? And then on one sheet, you see, wow, I got 3 in the points off that pair. You know, I sent 3, they're all in the points. Those are key pairs.
Taking advantage of technology has helped the club stay current. It begins on shipping night, when each bird is scanned. The microchip must match their band, and then they go into the transport. By the time Jim Milligan comes to drive the transport away, they have an exact count of how many pigeons are in the race. While the fanciers sleep, Jim drives to the race point and sleeps a little in his rig. Then he does what he's been doing for over 13 years, getting up and tending to the race birds before dawn. At home, Jerry McIntosh has still another critical job. He's chairman of the liberation committees, responsible for checking the weather and starting the race. Jerry consults with Jim at the release site and his committee members in the early morning hours, making the go, no-go decision for the thousands of birds he's responsible for. Again, weather technology is a huge asset. Weather permitting, and as early as they can make it in the cooler morning air, Jim starts the race. At home, the fanciers get up, often expecting both trainers and race birds, and make sure their clocks are running. But as the tension builds, there's another key technology that's as important as your clock.
Yeah, Jack.
It's Vonnie.
Hello? Hey, Ricky.
Mikey Malay.
Hello? Yeah, Mike.
Got my phone?
Yeah, this is Anthony. Mike's coming in.
Concourse went up at 8:30, GHC 8 o'clock.
40, 50 seconds went by and I had, another group of them and another group.
Oh, there goes a group right over right now.
Hay un burujón de paloma, pero no sé cuáles son.
GHC 19 in 22 seconds.
Okay, thanks a lot, Johnny. Bye. Grande clocked 3 minutes ago.
Okay.
The short end buried us.
I clocked at 48, 9:48.
I wish you good luck. All right, buddy, I'll talk to you later. Good.
It's only when you watch race birds come in that you understand what I mean by living in the fast lane. I spent time with Grande, whose loft is one of the shortest on the course and considered one of the men to beat on any day. He sits in a perch gazing north over this flat Florida scrubland of North Brooksville. He can barely concentrate, his phone rings so often, and he switches from English to Spanish depending on the caller asking if he's seen pigeons. There was a morning of false alarms as trainers piled in, but each time he used his droppers and electric whistle to call them in. When 3 race birds finally arrived, they took an extra swing as a noisy guest at a neighboring loft mistook them for their birds. That extra swing meant 3rd place by 5 seconds, 6th and 9th, in a 150-mile race with 2,000 pigeons. On an 84-degree day, when my sweat dripped into my camera's viewfinder, Grande's pigeons flew 2.5 hours at over 1,600 yards a minute, more than 56 miles an hour. For another race, I visited Rick Biasucci, almost 3 miles south of Grande. He's a widower who's devoted full-time both to winning and helping the sport here. He won the 2015 Classic by 43 seconds. Everything is a well-planned formula to Rick. He even knows which dropper to use based on how his arriving birds behave.
When I throw this guy here, he does the happy flap. I could throw him up and he'll hover and he'll come down, and I know which ones I could throw lower and they just go right to the loft.
The only thing not part of the plan here was a new puppy, a stray he adopted who chewed both my cameras and a crate while we waited for his birds. And Rick's still as excited as a kid every time that happens.
Here we go, here we go, here we go. Come on, come on, come on. Come on.
Rick's pigeons came from exactly where he wanted and trapped in quickly. The phone tree also reported his time was solid. The result of this 100-mile race, a few hours later when the race results were passed through the window, 12th by 23 seconds. Again, with over 2,000 birds. The first 50 places were gone in 60 seconds.
We'll get them next week.
For another race, I decided to take in one of the Unit 10 Club's Wednesday sprint races. Everything about this club is kind of a mini GHC. Smaller club, smaller transport, humbler digs, but much is the same, especially the faces. This sprint race is where many of the old guard give their classic and other money race birds experience on the road. Many of the rivalries here go back decades. As usual, Sal was doing most of the work and the usual suspects were doing most of the talking. And as usual, Jim Milligan was hauling these 600 birds too. This time to Alachua, their standard 100-mile station, about 50 miles from the Georgia border. The next morning, I went to Don Hart's beautiful loft. My aerial camera shows how close some of these aces live to each other. The red-roofed loft in the distance is Randall Berkey's on what they call the Hill. Now, a hill in Florida is the equivalent to a speed bump in my Montana, but this bird's eye view makes it clear Randall's pigeons can probably see their home a fair ways out. This is Randall's 3rd location in Spring Hill. Yes, people move just to shave a few seconds. Like Grande, Don is on a lot of people's speed dial, but I had time to set up some nice camera angles. You won't see a much more perfect arrival than Don Hart's pigeons. The dropper goes up, curves perfectly to the board, and down come the racers. The first pigeon, after 2 hours in the air, landed perfectly on a 2-foot square pad. Done. I was impressed. Don was cool. All around the neighborhood, you could hear the sound of whistles as birds poured in. The result of that picture-perfect landing? 7th place. Manny clocked 5 birds in 5 seconds a mile north, and Randall snuck one in a second ahead of Don. However, he had the consolation of 7 in the first 20. The first 50 places were gone in as many seconds. How did Manny get 5 birds in 5 seconds? Maybe it had something to do with this novel landing board he created, where the racers have only the pad to land on when they arrive. Details this small win races here. These races illustrate why getting your name on the first page is an honor, and getting a high percentage in the top 20% is an art. As for Jack was looking for 32 seconds. That Wednesday sprint was the second time he was 32 seconds out of first in the unit.
And then here I am here, 30th. 30th, I needed 32 seconds. Last week I needed 32 seconds.
He's trying to find 32 seconds though, John.
2 weeks in a row, John, 32 seconds.
Considering his pigeons almost need a map to see his loft among the trees, that's understandable, but not to Jack. In spite of getting an excellent percentage of his birds in the top 20%, he agonized about that half a minute. And he didn't do himself any favors. He had a wonderful hen we called Lazy Mary, who was his first pigeon 2 races in a row. A lot of fanciers would try again, hoping she'd finally score. Nope. Jack had a plan to save his best young hens for 3 years, so Mary raced twice and will never have to work again. I had to leave Spring Hill to get this show edited, but Jack kept me advised on what he was doing. He added an exhaust fan in a part of the loft. He carefully weighed his feed when he noticed that fractions of an ounce in their last meal seemed to improve results. And as he did while I was there, I bet he kept asking anyone he trusted for advice. Less than a month after he started looking, Jack called to tell me he'd found his 32 seconds.
It was a good race.
Well, I'm proud of you. That's great.
I mean, exactly 32 seconds, winning the GHC's southern section in a hard 250-mile race from southern Georgia. Those are a few stories of how it is down here. These split-second results weren't ones I picked out for their drama. This is exactly how they happened over a few weeks I spent with these folks. That's how they live in the fast lane. And like Rick said and Jack proved, you better get up every morning thinking you have a chance to get them next time, or you better race somewhere else.